It's been a dismal couple of days on Wall Street as markets react in real time to President Donald Trump's tough talk on tariffs. So will the president blink while playing the tariff cards with Canada and Mexico and then maybe ease those tariffs? So as we watch Wall Street right now, here is what we know. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says there could be a compromise as soon as today. Trump's new tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico prompted a huge sell-off. The Dow losing more than 1,300 points in 2 days. So what we're seeing today is a little bit better. Let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, we're watching those markets. They really are hinging on hopes for a compromise here. We also know President Donald Trump meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau relative to those tariffs. What are you looking for today?
Yeah, definitely. When Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said that last night that there could be a compromise, the market wasn't trading, but you always look at futures, and all of a sudden it spiked up a couple hundred points. It came back today, and now we're back up again. So really, there's a lot of volatilities as investors are waiting for some kind of answer. Now, what we do know is that the meeting in the middle, it does sound like there are tariffs that will remain, but there might be certain sectors that would be exempt. The auto industry has been particularly called out as one of those that might be exempt from those tariffs. Remember, we have a very interconnected supply chain when it comes to Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. For many of the major automakers, and of course the Ford CEO just a month ago warned how these tariffs could really decimate the U.S. auto industry. So that will be one to watch. The other two areas that I'm particularly looking at is if there's any movement on the Canadian or tariff on Canadian energy. Remember, there's a 10% tariff on oil and gas and energy coming from Canada. We get a lot of our energy from Canada, so that is one to watch. And then also lumber, aluminum, and steel, really three key inputs for home building. I doubt we're going to see any movement on the aluminum and steel tariffs, as the president did mention that in his speech last night. But potentially lumber, we could see some movement. So those are kind of the areas that I'm looking for. And of course, we'll see the markets react accordingly if we do get that message today.
All right, Kelly, so let's move on to the other C nation, as it is, China. They are really firing back at Donald Trump's move to double down on those Chinese goods. The Chinese embassy, look at this, in the United States, posted to social media saying, in part, quote, "If war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, trade war, or any other type of war, we are ready to fight until the end." And we should remember, we don't just rely on China for exports. American companies also do business in China. So what is at stake right now when we hear that tough talk from China?
Yeah, I didn't love that last phrase,
Right.
Any kind of war. That always sort of sends shivers up your spine, not just a trade war, but specifically talking about our economic ties. You're right. We rely on China. China relies on us. We import a lot of goods into this country and export a lot. The two areas that I think could be really problematic for us if we got into a trade war would be industries that might be decimated. I'm thinking particularly of farming. China has already slapped back with retaliatory tariffs on areas like soybean and corn, which were decimated under the first Trump administration when those tariffs were in place. Another thing would be, as you say, companies that do a lot of business in China. So think Apple, Nike, Starbucks. Those are companies that have a very, very vested interest in being able to sell to the Chinese market. Tesla as well. So there could really be a lot of back and forth here. The context that I will give is, yes, there does seem to be a lot of bark in that language. I'm not sure how much bite there will be, because the Chinese response has been measured thus far to the tariffs that we have slapped on them and their goods that we import into this country versus what we saw under the first Trump administration. We do know they're meeting right now for their economic congress, and they are struggling a bit economically. So I will be curious to see if it's bark or bite when it comes to that language that we saw in that message that you shared.
Bark, bite, or bargaining, we know you've got them all covered. Kelly O'Grady, always great to talk to you, my friend.